You know what's strange about the fair finishers are dead because everybody kicks out of them. The vast majority of finishers are awesome, and they're over. It barely matters how unprotected most of them are, or how many times they have been cannibalized. Locked in the heat of a blood-pumping pro wrestling match, you forget. So yes, the finisher remains in incredible health, all things considered, and these men and women therefore have no excuse. Let's see the top 10 worst finishers in WWE today. Number 10. Naomi's Rear View. It's difficult to appraise the following move without going full Meltzer and stumbling into the lip-smacking wall of social media outrage. But, see, we're doing it already, since the move itself is deployed because of Naomi's, let's just refer to it as a physical advantage, and
I thought she had it. Oh, rear view by Naomi!
Probably isn't on, it's difficult not to. The move is also called the rear view.
And Naomi calls that the rear view.
This is entrapment. To even describe the psychology behind a maneuver is an invitation to cancellation. Here goes. She hits people in the face with her ace. It requires some feat of athleticism to pull off. This is called walking back, so you can't do this either, but yeah. It's a bit deft, sorry. Number 9. Bayley's Baited Belly. Bayley sealed her own fate by choosing the name Bayley, which she selected because she is from the Bay Area of California. Bayley arrived at the Baited Belly as a finishing move, one that boasts additional gimmick synergy. She likes to hug people, in a friendly Jonathan Coachman manner.
Went for the belly to belly and now able to deliver. Here's the
On a practical level, this is far less impactful than a basic body slam.
just in time. Oh, circling twist in place and a belly to belly.
It's over only because Bayley is over as a beacon of joy, and we will get a victory regardless because Christ knows she has suffered enough. She's lucky she isn't called Pearl, because by law she would have to use the sleep Pearl hold. Number 8. Kalisto's The Solita del Sol. It was invoked to pile misery on Kalisto a few years back. A certain cell phone of a promo will invite the odd man, but Kalisto has quietly rehabilitated that reputation as a result of his consistently smooth and exciting performances on the 205 Live brand.
Woods over here. Barking at Tyson. Wait a minute! There's the goodness! Selena Del Sol.
Kalisto is the shockmaster of cruiserweights, and while that is harsh and unfair, his finisher is just convoluted and ungainly enough to make peace with his legacy. To execute what is essentially a reverse DDT, a move he isn't equipped with the power and size to execute traditionally. He sort of climbs up his opponent backwards using his agility. It looks awesome in certain contexts, countering a deadlift suplex, using the ropes to work around the cooperation, but otherwise, you can almost hear his opponent say, "Up you go, come on, you can do it."
Oh, wait a minute. Kalisto countered! Selena Del Sol.
Number 7. Jinder Mahal's The Callas. Jinder Mahal needed something to justify his bizarre and ultimately destructive run with a WWE Championship.
There's no disqualification, so it doesn't matter on who the hell they are. Jinder Mahal, the cover.
WWE's complete contempt for artistry, continuity and the very lineage of the title, Jinder stood little chance. As basic as a pro wrestler gets, Mahal was far closer to Florida Championship Wrestling than the main event of WrestleMania, and while his Palace finisher isn't Saxton Nation bad, it is about as impotent as Byron Saxton's commentary. This finisher only underscored how unsuitable Mahal was for the role. But it isn't the rock bottom because the act doesn't possess anywhere near the same gravitas, and so it is, instead, an incompetent and primitive slam more emblematic of the performer than the performer would like. Number 6. The Miz's skull-crushing finale. Theoretically, Miz's skull-crushing finale should look halfway devastating. It did when Dennis Condrey did it. The problem with Miz's specific adaptation is that he simply isn't awesome at projecting any sense of physical credibility. Miz is a lot like John Cena, in many ways. He's a natural, charismatic storyteller and entertainer, so if you ignore his sloppy fundamentals, you'll be sports entertained. If you're pedantic, you will notice that his finisher is piss weak.
It worked! Beautiful! No, come on! Got him!
The move is, or should be, a full Nelson Festbuster. Miz here, and on several other occasions, does not actually apply the full Nelson. His opponent is under no obligation to fall flat on his face, because this gape is an evident, visible possibility. Number 5. AJ Styles Clash. The style clash looks cool, so it works in that regard. The frantic, dangling legs and arms of his opponents telegraph brilliantly the imminent danger, and by hooking those dangling legs, Styles creates a sense of grim finality.
Not from up there, AJ! The Styles clash!
But the opponent lands a bit awkwardly on their knees, from what is hardly a great height. It's anticlimactic, which is the opposite of what a finisher is. It's over, and it's cool, and so it works, but think of the physics. It's more fun that way. Dangerous only when executed incorrectly. The Styles clash is the Shane McMahon worked bunch of finishing moves performed by otherwise outstanding pro wrestlers.
Caught by Styles! Oh, he's got it! Styles clash! To the Universal Champion!
Number 4. Big E's Big Ending. It is difficult to approach Big E's big ending through any of these subjective lenses. Big E, in the process of hitting the move, voluntarily takes a flag back bump, which would be fine because this flex, but there's so little impact absorbed by the opponent that it only invites scrutiny.
Big E's the legal man! Big ending!
Now, what brief impact exists is absorbed by the stomach, so presumably, the idea is to wind the opponent to render their chances of kicking out slim. If you can't breathe, you can't move. If somebody were to punch you full force in the gut, there's little chance that you will theatrically kick out your legs after 2.9 seconds, and less chance of the person punching you clasping their hands over their head in disbelief.
Picture, hold on!
If anything, Big E's arm, which he needs to put somewhere, seems to cushion the blow somewhat. So, this move essentially accomplishes nothing, aside perhaps from a sore back, by the wrestler who delivers it. Number 3. John Cena's Attitude Adjustment. John Cena is an excellent sports entertainer, because he grasps that wrestling isn't necessarily about the moves. It's how a performer registers and sequences, and intensifies those moves to craft a story of physical determination.
Number 4, stunner by Cena into the AA, and
Now, where Cena's feet land following the deployment of the move, doesn't really matter, but it's still distracting. You're meant to ask yourself, whoa, can his opponent kick out of that? You're not meant to ask, why do John Cena's feet stick out funny? The AA is the worst finisher in all of wrestling. Actually, hold that thought.
John Cena with a look up top! John Cena!
Number 2. John Cena's STF. John Cena knows how to properly apply his STF to make it look like it hurts. This is key to every professional wrestling hold and attack, much less the finishing move used by a man WWE has marketed in 2019 as the greatest of all time.
Cena, center of the ring, hooks it in, STF, is Rollins gonna tap?
Ideally, it should look like it hurts. John Cena's STF all too often looks like it does not hurt. It looks like it doesn't hurt because, for whatever reason, he refuses to apply pressure, instead opting for the classic pro wrestling strategy of an intimate embrace. Hey, if you have to ask the question, the STF is the worst finisher in all of wrestling. Actually, hold that thought.
Caught by Cena, Cena going for the STF, STF is in, STF is in!
Number 1. Seth Rollins' King's Landing. I don't think the problem with Seth Rollins' King's Landing finisher is the move itself. He needed the face of his opponent. This could convincingly knock out many unsuspecting people. Despite this, there are many factors at work outside the maneuver that make it a little lame.
For the springboard uppercut, Rollins able to counter with a knee. There's the...
First is the name, King's Landing, which is a move that is used by a man who calls himself the Kingslayer. We get it, Seth, you like Game of Thrones. It doesn't make the move seem cooler, it just makes the wrestler in question seem like a giant nerd. It would be like a Final Fantasy fan naming his finisher the One-Winged Angel. Oh, wait, that is a thing. But the second thing that works against Seth here with the King's Landing is that it is a bit lackluster compared to his other two finishers.
Thought all of it too cold. There's the knee! Rollins from...
Compared to two moves in the curb stomp and pedigree that drives the opponent's head into the mat, a knee strike to the face just seems kind of meh. Maybe I'm just being a little nitpicky here though.